We all want to make good decisions, or better to say, smart decisions, or excellent decisions. The question is, how can you be sure that you can make good decisions? And many people will say, whoa, I would actually be happy if I could avoid bad decision alone. That would already be a massive benefit. And this is what we're going to talk about today. And by the way, we had people from real world practice. Besides me, of course, I work in real world practice, but we had people from real world practice just yesterday on the English podcast. We had Rhys David Hamilton, who at a very young age became general manager of one of the largest tobacconists in the UK, who gave us insights about general management and leadership and how to lead in today's quite unprecedented times. While on the German podcast yesterday, we interviewed Frederick Mittelstedt, an engineering manager from Reddit. We published the English interview a couple of weeks ago on this channel already. So, when we now look into why is it so difficult to make good decisions, and there are a couple of problems we have to look into, and then as promised, and as always, we're going to look into how to do it better in the future. So aspect number one, and part of the problem is often people say we need to be more efficient and more effective, and that is simply nothing else than an excuse to go for where can we get it cheaper. And then people go on a purchasing trip and they go cheaper, 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 cheaper. And suddenly you realize the quality of the product and the services is not where you want it to be. So just because you want to be more efficient and more effective doesn't mean that it has to be cheaper. Actually, a higher priced solution can be the better choice. Unfortunately, and that's another part of the problem, is that often opinion is favored over facts. Only look into the discussions about work from home, work from anywhere. How many people have arguments which are only driven by their personal opinion? I just give you an example. Just last week, I talked to someone, international corporation, and they decided that anywhere in the United States, they pay the same for the people, no matter where they work. It's a complete work from anywhere solution. And suddenly someone said, if other people are living outside the United States. And yeah, of course, some people did. Some people lived in London, some people lived in Germany, some lived in Africa or in India. And that was the point where the manager said, oh, here we are, US income and you live in India. Do you know how rich you are with the US income in India? Well, here we see the real motivation of this manager, personal envy. If you want to have the same life, move to India or move to any African country where you can make more from your money. At least that's what you say. And then you can see the life circumstances there. And maybe you see that it comes with a different kind of price tag. But often, and this is part of the problem, bad decisions happen when people favor their personal opinion over scientific facts. And often, efficiency and effectiveness, especially efficiency, is designed somewhere on an Excel spreadsheet without any proper testing in the real world. And I have an excellent example for that with you here today. And I'm giving you an example from someone who we interviewed in this podcast a couple of times, Graham Jones, who works for a university in London and who is a scientist who does research. So he had a problem. And by the way, I'm not telling you secrets. He published this story in one of his newsletters. He had an issue with his water meter because the water meter was leaking. Someone showed up and they said, it's fixed. And the day after, the leak was worse than it was before. So he called again. And just to let you know, if you're not from the UK, Thames Water sounds like a publicly run company. It's not. But just because Thames is in there and it sounds all very Londonish, doesn't mean that it's a charity or that it's an association. No, it's a for-profit company. It's investor-owned. Most of the invested money in that organization is not British money. Often it's not even European money. It's an international investment fund. International investment funds run this company, which is also very important to understand what's happening here. So he had to call again, and the water meter must be exchanged. And I tell you, because this happened before, how the old process was happening. The old process was someone shows up, investigates the leaks, fix it, repairs the meter, then of course has to fill in any holes that was digged and close all the holes, and then of course clean up the mess, take all the signs and the roadwork signs and everything with them. So normally 2 people showed up, takes about 3 hours, job done. That is the old process, and now here are the news. How did Graham Jones find out that there is a new process? Well, the new process he realized because now people told him it's not going to be 2 people who... So Thames Water told him there won't be 2 people showing up doing it all. There is a new process in place after an efficiency program. Maybe you heard the term efficiency program before. And the new the new process now is a bit different, and I'm not making this up. You can go on Graham Jones' blog and see, because he published it right there, because otherwise you will not believe what you listen to right now. So the new process is 2 people show up, then they dig a hole, and then they fix the leak. How did Graham Jones find out about that? Because on a Sunday at 10 p.m., 2 people showed up knocking on his door saying if it's okay when they now start noisy digging for a couple of hours. And of course he said, no, it's not, because we all have to get up early in the morning to get to work on Monday, and also the whole neighborhood will be awake. How can these people sleep when you do noisy digging? So 2 people showed up then, of course, later. They dig a hole and then they try to fix the leak. And everything stays exactly like that. I mean, good news is the leak is fixed. Good. But still all the signs, road works, the hole, everything, still there. Another day, 2 other people show up and they exchange, they put a new water meter in. And then you think, and then they no. Another day, an external company shows up and closes the hole that was digged before. And now you think, but now we're finished. No, we're not, because another day, another external company shows up to get all the roadwork signs and everything that was left behind from the construction area. They pick all that up, so it can all return back to normal. So a process which before that was 2 people showing up, 3 hours, job done, is now 2 to 3 companies involved, 6 to 8 people involved, taking 4 days instead of 3 hours. I have no idea what is the logic behind that. Maybe there is none, because suddenly the effort is tremendously higher. Maybe it's that these investors had other companies and they want to give these companies work. Maybe they just pitched to the very cheapest offer and they weren't flexible enough. So you have customers that are massively dissatisfied with that, because the idea they have, and I think the idea they have is, we have specialized people and they only do one job. One person only digs, one person only closes the hole, etc. So every person only has one job. That only works because they derive this logic from a production plant in a factory where you have people sitting at some sort of transport belt and only do one thing to a certain project. But that doesn't work when you fix water meters. Because when you dig a hole, there can be any problem which can be fixed in between an hour or 6 weeks. So you can't just say, we take the same principle and think it works the same time. No matter how much you automatize it or how much data you put in there, no matter how much you try to outsmart the system, it is definitely more effort and more time. And of course, customers are really annoyed when they have to stay there over and over again, only to you showing up again and again and again, causing noise and effort. So, unfortunately, often then when something goes wrong, it is always okay to say it goes wrong, we just do a rollback, reset it to what we had before. But unfortunately, often leaders do exactly the opposite. They tell people now, no, it's not great, but you have to pretend it's great. Tell the client it's the best solution we ever had. And unfortunately, we have a bad example here from the City of London. The newspaper City AM, very well-known newspaper, especially in the City of London, Canary Wharf area. KPMG again is in the focus. And one thing I want to make very clear here, because in the recent past I received quite unpleasant emails from some people saying, oh, these big consultancy companies, they don't have a clue, all of them are totally incompetent. That's not true. These big consultancy companies, the majority of them do excellent work. But unfortunately, especially in the recent past, they showed that they also performed massive misbehavior, at least some of them, and especially KPMG was in the focus quite a couple of times, and here we have them again, because KPMG now, and according to CDAM, reportedly urges staff to use their internal whistleblowing system and not to pass on internal details to the media. Because what happened before, and we discussed that on this podcast, is that the recording, a recording of a town hall meeting led to former head, Bill Michael, he was the local head of KPMG UK, and he had to step down after, in a town hall meeting, he said people should stop whining about COVID-19 and unconscious bias doesn't exist. And of course, these statements are totally inappropriate. And of course, his position became untenable, as you say, in the UK. And then he stepped down, which is the polite version of they told him either you step down or we will fire you. So what you have here is something went wrong, and then the organization says, could you please keep it internal? And now it is not easy to lead through these situations. To these situations, I know, because when you tell people not to put something to the public, some people say, "Oh, I have a right to freedom of speech." Yes, you have a right to freedom of speech, but unfortunately, this is now a widespread claim to be misused by people who say something like, "Oh, the vaccine is dangerous," or "Bill Gates wants to microchip me." That is not covered by free speech, because deliberate lies and deliberate misinformation are not a valid opinion. And there is a very easy example for that, because I had one of these examples in one of my management seminars just recently, where someone said, in his opinion, and that was a participant in the seminar, and that person said, "When I think the vaccine is dangerous, I have the right to this opinion, and I have a right that this is discussed." So first, here is the first error. You have a right to your opinion, but not to your own facts. And second, you do not have the right that this gets discussed. If I say, "Oh, dear BMW, I think every car should only have one door, let's discuss that," they won't discuss that with me because it's obvious nonsense. Spreading deliberate lies and misinformation neither is a valid opinion, and nor is there a right to get a platform. You have a right to your opinion, which means you go to your balcony, if you have one, or to your window, and you shout your opinion out. Good luck with that. You don't have a right to get a platform or that people listen to you. You have a right to your opinion, and anyone else can comment and say that your opinion is utterly ridiculous, and then we stick to facts. Unfortunately, many people mix this up. So when you tell people, keep it internal, but they don't, there is a very clear sign, and the very clear message sent from your employees to you is they know about the whistleblowing process, they don't trust it, they don't trust the people, they don't think that any consequences would happen if they keep it internal. And that's why they put it to public. I remember, and many of you will remember too, there was a memo by Theresa May where she said that people should stop leaking things to the media. And that memo, guess what, was leaked to the media. So you will not make people stop to talk about something just because you tell them stop talking about something. It is like telling a child, please don't jump in the puddle. What will the child do? Probably jump in the puddle, because there is no concept of telling someone what not to do. You have to tell them what to do, and then you have to give them reason. You have to give them reason. Sorry. But telling people keep it internal when your internal process does not have the power to make appropriate, to implement appropriate countermeasures, no one is going to stick to your internal processes. And KPMG now sees how bad decision making has again takes a toll on the employer brand. And of course, now we have to talk about how to do it better. So how can we do better when it comes to making decisions? And of course, there are different kind of approaches. So you can do coaching, consulting, mentoring. You can have professional training delivered, and you can have speakers, professional speakers at your events focusing on these topics, giving great speeches at your events. And of course, you can have project or interim managers to help you a bit more on a long-term approach. Feel free, if you have any interest there, just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, nb@nb-networks.com. And when you're interested in something more in writing, just go on expert.nb-networks.com, expert.nb-networks.com. Once per week, every Wednesday, I send out not only blog articles, which I have written, but also the podcast and, of course, video interviews with experts, so you can see what is offered there. It's only available and for free via the Expert Excellence, which I send out every Wednesday. And now we focus on how to make better decisions. And of course, and that is step number one, modern approaches are based on science. And one problem we have right now, and I saw it just in a bookstore just today. I went to a bookstore, and the huge section of this bookstore was so-called pop science. So first, I am very happy that people read science again. Unfortunately, people seem to be either unwilling or unable to read a proper study. I know it's pretty dry stuff and often not easy to read. However, it is important to read the science. Either you read it by yourself or you get someone external in who helps you to understand it. That's the other version. Of course, you can say getting someone external in is the more cost-efficient solution. Perfect. Part of my business as well, because everything I do is based on science, so just that's okay. But unfortunately, we now have people who read a pop science book. Pop science stands for popular science. And these pop science books tend to oversimplify massively. They don't give you the full 500 aspects of the study. They give you 5 aspects. They probably talk about 2. They scratch on the surface of another 2 or 3. People read these books and then become incredibly schmuck about how smart they are about the issue. And when you still think that reading something like, the 7 steps of highly efficient people, if you still think that this leads to anything, then you are deep into the self-help industry, which never helped anyone except the people selling it to you, because there's always the next workshop, the next book you have to buy. You're just inside a massive sales funnel. And by the way, saying it's a best-selling book, just because a book sells well doesn't mean it's a good book. Most YouTubers' memoirs sell incredibly well, in the millions. None of them added any value to society. So when you read pop science, it doesn't mean you're a scientist, and it doesn't mean that you're an expert on the subject matter. So decide, either you read science properly, or you get someone in who did so to help you. The second aspect is, please communicate your true motives, because people will get to know them anyway. It is more honest, and it will be perceived way better when you say, we are a large real estate company and we want that people work from the offices because real estate is our job and our investment, and the profits we make pay your salary as well. Of course, people won't be happy with everything you do. Of course, you won't win an award for the most modern employer. And of course, some people might leave because they want to work from home and they think you are really old-fashioned. But at least you're honest. If you start to talk about, we focus on the people and the social interaction is so important, people crave to meet, blah, 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 blah. Many people are very happy working from home. Many people have friends outside work. Many people do not want to return to an office, and you have to deal with that. And when people know that you invested in real estate, don't pretend that you didn't. Because people are aware of the fact that there is a connection between the profit you generate and the salary you pay towards them. Okay? So communicate your true motives. And aspect number 3 is, every change needs a professional planning, including a testing phase. So when you want to implement a change and you have an idea for a new process, then please do testing before you put it into the real world. Because sometimes you realize then, it's not fit for use, it's not fit for purpose, we won't do it that way. Because, and that's aspect number 4, good management admits mistakes. And you know what they do? They say, hey, we have this idea, we tested it, and it was absolute rubbish. It didn't work at all. And you win even more popularity points when you say, hey, we had this idea, you said it's not going to work. We tested it, and guess what? You were right, we were wrong, we're very sorry, we need to listen more to you. Because, and that's aspect number 5, always talk to people who are in direct contact with the subject matter you're about to change. When you change the bookkeeping system, talk to the bookkeepers. When you change the sales process, talk to the salespeople. When you change the purchasing process, talk to the people working in purchasing. When you change the production process, talk to the people working in your production plants. Because that is the only way how you will find out anything you overlooked so far. Because you will run into it sooner or later anyway, but please address it early. And of course, you can now say, well, some people might be a bit difficult, some people might think their job is in danger, etc. Yes, that might be the case, but many people are very open-minded as long as you approach them honestly about their opinion and their input. And when someone starts to talk complete nonsense and say, robots are going to take over the world and will microchip us, then of course you know you don't have to listen to that person. And also, these people are 1 out of 100,000. Probably 1 out of 1,000,000. So don't tell me that all the people act like that. It is very important that not everyone has to be asked, especially when they are clueless, and not every opinion counts the same way. There is a right to freedom of speech, there is a right to your opinion, there is not a right to your own facts, and there is no right to get a platform. So when you talk complete nonsense, there is no reason why people should give you a platform and listen to you. If you want to do that, go on Facebook or Twitter. There's enough nonsense out there already. But you have to talk. As a good leader to make smart decisions, talk to the people who work in real world practice. There is one TV show And I know it's entertainment, but it gives good insights in this case. When you look at the TV show Undercover Boss, which is aired in the US, the UK, and also in Germany and different other countries. So senior leaders undercover go into their organization, and then they see that some things are really going wrong. And then they see that some of the things going wrong are due to their bad decisions. And why? Because they did not listen to the people working directly with the subject. So don't be one of them. Be smarter than that. And also, please stay away, and that's aspect number 6, using phrases that no one believes. So, for example, when someone says, it's technically not possible, which means the technology isn't there, and you answer with, well, make it possible. That is not an answer. That is pretty close to naming it as completely ridiculous. Or when you tell people, we believe in you. Well, you can believe in whatever you want, but that doesn't help the people. And my favorite one, when you say, we support you in any way we can. And of course, people will then ask, so do we get more time, more money, or more resources, like more people? And then, of course, you say, no, no, and no. And people know exactly how much you support them. Not beyond all talk, no trousers. It's all chit-chat. So please stop using these phrases, because they don't add to your credibility. They actually diminish your credibility. And we all know that the social acceptance you have as a leader today is way more important than the formal qualification you bring in. The last aspect of how to do it better, please stay away from over-engineering. What's over-engineering? What we heard with the story with Thames Water. The story of Thames Water, that was over-engineering. A perfectly well-working process that probably was in place for 20 years. Someone looked on it and said, oh, that process is 20 years old. We need to innovate. And then they change it only for the sake of a change. And that does not by definition make it better. You see many startups, and these startups often fail after a couple of years, they over-engineer something. And then you see a fancy marketing video where they say, oh, for 50 years, the pen has not changed. But we now have a pen where when you click double on the back, you can order your food, which you put into the app before, just by clicking your pen. Well, nice, but not really necessary. Actually unnecessary, and actually not really practical. And that is one of these aspects where you see over-engineering something actually makes it worse. There can be a perfectly well-running process, and just because it's there for 20 years, it doesn't mean that you have to change it. Some processes are exactly right the way they are right now. That, of course, cannot be taken as an excuse for not innovating, but don't innovate only for the sake of innovation. It is now very important, and especially, and I said it in the beginning, especially yesterday, we had Rhys David Hamilton here, general manager of one of the largest tobacconists in the country. Listen to young people who have a career, who have a leadership position, and how they look into the jobs today, what their approach is. And of course, I'm happy to have the discussions which we have every week. Just email me to nb@nb-networks.com. nb@nb-networks.com. I'm looking forward to discussing with you how to make smarter decisions. I hope you found these insights helpful, which we had here today. Very important is now everything you heard must be applied in your organization, because only what you apply is worth listening to. So apply. That is the most important aspect. Let me know if you need any help. I'm happy to help you. Just drop me an email and we start a discussion right there. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.